Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today we're jumping into some malicious compliance. Please check out the KCC Discord linked in the description down below. There you can talk to me and a whole bunch of KCC fans who hang out there on a regular basis. I look forward to seeing you there. Our first story today comes to us from DarkCloud1111. Pizza shop owner told me not to show up after 10:15, so I didn't. Let's jump right in. This story took place a few years ago, but I just remembered it after passing by the shopping center this pizza place used to be in. Background information. At the time, I was working for a window cleaning company and was paid commission. I got paid a fraction of whatever I cleaned. At the beginning of the day, we would be given a list of jobs in an area and drive around until everything was done. Usually the routes were somewhat random, meaning it was rare to get the same route twice in a row. Most routes had a large number of restaurants that had to be done before they opened. So usually we would have to plan out when to get to a job based on what time they arrived, so we wouldn't have to backtrack. The route in question will be called Springfield, but this route also had two small pizza places in the next town over, Shelbyville, that were always included because the company did not have any other jobs in that area, and Springfield was the closest town. Both of these jobs didn't usually show up until around 10:15 to 10:30, so I would often have to save them until all my other restaurants were done before making the 15-minute drive over. There also wasn't enough work on this route to justify sending two people, so whoever had it was by themselves. To the actual story. So one morning I'm driving out to Shelbyville and stop at my first job at around 10:20. This job is cheap, consisting of about one big window and a door. However, the lights were completely off and no one replied when I knocked. So I left to do the other job in the area before returning at around 10:40 to see someone is inside. At that point, I get my stuff out and start cleaning the outside, only for the owner to see me and come storming to the door. In a very angry voice, he starts asking me what the heck I thought I was doing. When I explained that I was cleaning the windows, as if it wasn't already apparent, he yells at me that I should have been there earlier, to which I told him what time I was originally there, that the lights were out and no one answered when I knocked. The owner assured me he was there, but that he just likes to sit in the back office with all the lights out, and next time I should knock harder. Lastly, before I left, after he refused to pay for the outside I had already done, he yelled that, "If you can't be here before 10:30, don't even bother coming at all." The malicious compliance. It was around this time that back in Springfield, my boss had picked up another restaurant that was about 10 times more expensive, but had the same issue of people not showing up until around 9:45 to 10 o'clock to allow me to clean the inside. This meant that every time I had this route, I had to pick between a job that cost $10 or a job that cost $100. I picked the most expensive one. Because this new place was so much bigger, even if I did the outside before they got there, it would still take me at least 20 to 30 minutes to finish the inside. Because of this, I wouldn't even start driving out to Shelbyville until almost 10:30. As a result, I took what the owner said to heart and stopped showing up. Also, because of some weird twist of fate, I ended up getting this route multiple times in a row. So this guy hadn't been cleaned for 6 months straight before someone else eventually had to do it. It became even funnier for me as during those 6 months, we picked up a dry cleaner right next door to him that I would clean while staying just out of sight of the pizza place. It also somehow slipped past my bosses that I hadn't been doing this one job as it never came up. When my coworker went to go clean it, the owner apparently thought we had gone out of business or something as he hadn't seen us in so long. Shortly after, he canceled service altogether, then went out of business maybe another 2 months after that. This owner of this pizza shop was paying a pittance to have their windows cleaned. I don't blame OP for not wanting to go back there at all either. I would definitely take the $100 job over the $10 job any day. Do me a quick favor and take a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're actually not subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. This next story comes to us from One More Time. He told me we didn't have to see each other, so I didn't. Let's jump right in. A few years ago, I started seeing this guy casually. We both explicitly agreed when we started that we weren't really looking for a relationship. This went on great for a bit, but a few months in, things started to get ambiguous. He started acting really inconsistently, sometimes acting and talking like we were in a relationship, and sometimes ignoring me or getting really flaky. Now, personally, I wasn't actively looking for a relationship because I had a lot of things to focus on at that time, but I wasn't opposed to it either. I was good either way, so long as I knew what was going on between us. In hindsight, the ambiguity was itself a red flag that I should have taken at face value, regardless of relationship status. But hey, we learn best through experience, and I didn't realize it at the time. So after a few weeks of him seesawing back and forth particularly hard, I had had enough and decided to talk to him about it. Honestly, I was fine either being casual or in a relationship. I just couldn't tolerate being in between, and I wanted to set up boundaries. When I tried to ask him about what he wanted to do though, he blew up. Basically tried to convince me that it was all in my head, that I had made up his behavior. When I pushed him for clarity on what he saw us as, he responded that we're just two people who see each other when they feel like it, nothing more. Clearly not what he had been communicating before. But I did ask for clarification, so I get what I get. If he had said it without the gaslighting, I probably would have been okay with it, but at that point, I was ticked off. So I said okay, talked with him for a few more minutes, led him to the door, smiled goodbye, then closed the door and never saw him again. He probably thinks I ghosted him, but I know all I did was accept his terms. We're just two people who saw each other when they felt like it. It just so happened that after he blew up at me about the whole thing, I didn't really feel like seeing him. He did end up messaging and calling me a few times since then, asking to hang out. I answer, but I'll never see him. I don't feel like it. Open and honest communication is honestly one of the hardest things to learn in a relationship, but it's one of the things that will make your relationship long and prosperous. OP, I'm glad you figured out that there was never going to be honest communication from his side, and you did what you needed to do to get away. I'm sure you'll find the person you're looking for in the future, but never feel bad about walking away from a relationship that just isn't working. This next story comes to us from Crank Mike. Site director does not want the shift foreman to correct his mistake, so the emergency shutdown kicks in. Let's jump right in. This story took place almost 11 years ago when I just finished my apprenticeship and started working in a combined heat and power plant, CHP. It's not my compliance, but my actions indirectly led to the situation. Also, this did not happen in an English-speaking country, so I am translating position names and terminology to the best of my ability. I will have to give some technical information and backstory so it makes sense. The CHP was a smaller plant with 3 boilers, one small one that would only produce hot pressurized water for district heating, and 2 bigger ones that instead would produce super hot and pressurized steam to a power generator, and afterwards, the partially cooled down water would be used for district heating. During summer, when demand for heating was low, only the small boiler would be used and no electricity would be produced. There were 2 kinds of jobs you would be assigned to, either maintenance, which had working hours from 7 to 4, or shift with 3 8-hour shift rhythm. During summertime, there was only a skeleton crew on shift time, 1 shift foreman and 1 normal worker, while the rest of us would either be on maintenance or take the time off to reduce the amount of overtime you accumulate during winter. We had several people working in the office that would be ranked higher than us normal workers, but above the shift foreman were only like 3 people in the plant, one of which was the site director mentioned in the title. He was extremely full of himself, since he had a doctorate and put on a big boss act, to the point where I thought he was the manager of our CHP branch and only recently learned how wrong I was. He had a bad habit of visiting the shift workers in the control center, talking to the foreman, and fixing some settings for pumps and boilers, and then leave back to his office. The problem would be, he would always put the settings close to the maximum or minimum of whatever he would fix. Like for example, the output of the pump that pumped the heated water out of the boiler, stuff like that. So the people working on shift had to fix his mistakes after he left, so the boilers would not shut down. Okay, with that out of the way, to the actual story of malicious compliance and my indirect part in it. I had worked at the plant for almost a year, and after my 1-year contract ran out, I would leave for higher education in a completely different field. So I was somewhat running a 0 F's given mentality. I was on maintenance since it was summertime and got assigned to help the site director's secretary prepare a conference room for some meeting. And we got to chatting about random stuff. But at some point the topic of the site director himself came up, and the conversation went something like this. So, is the site director always so uptight? I don't know what you mean. He's a very nice boss and everyone in the office likes to work with him. Oh, really? I never got that feeling when meeting him in the control center. Really? How come? Well, he just walks in, only talks to the foreman at best, and messes with our settings, which we have to fix afterwards. But nobody dares to say something to him, I guess. After that, we did not say much more, and I realized pretty quickly that I may have gotten myself into some trouble by talking so openly with her. But I was so used to not really caring that much, and during the conversation, I didn't really consider my words carefully. Well, turns out the secretary told the site director what I said, though to this day don't know if she mentioned my name, since I was never spoken to about this topic. The site director, however, was apparently pissed off enough that he walked into the control center the next day, did his messing with the settings, and then forbid the foreman to revert the changes, because he knows better than anyone in this building how to run the plant. The foreman did as he was told and did not touch what the site director changed. After about 20 minutes, the plant had an emergency shutdown because the boiler ran out of water and was about to overheat. There were no repercussions for any customers since we had a big reservoir container at all times connected to the district heating net that could bridge the time until the boiler could be restarted. But any emergency shutdown has to be followed up by a team from the main office downtown, probably so they can pin the fault on someone should it come to some financial hit. The fallout that I witnessed at the time was mainly the site director being a bit of a laughingstock amongst us workers, and him not coming into the control center for the time I was still working there. I left a few weeks later after my contract ran out, and honestly didn't think too much about it until I met an old coworker of mine, who is a shift foreman himself now. He told me that about half a year after I left, the actual branch manager had a meeting with all shift foremen. And a while after that, the site director was fired after it was discovered that he put almost all his workload on the foreman and some of the office workers. Afterwards, one of the most senior shift foremen was offered some advanced training in order to take on the position of site director, since they need someone in the position that actually knows how to operate the plant, and they were doing most of his job already anyways. It still baffles me why companies would hire people for management positions from outside of the company, people who have no idea what's going on in that company. I've said it many times before on this channel, but if you're being hired to manage something, you need to actually spend time doing the job that you're managing. Otherwise, how can you effectively manage it if you don't know what's going on? This next story comes to us from Renticle. Client wanted me to escalate the issue. Let's jump right in. The technical details might not be entirely accurate because 1, I'd like to keep some anonymity in case my coworkers read this site, and 2, this is about the story, not how to troubleshoot a specific software. That said, yesterday I got an email from a client complaining that they can't log into our software. He sent me a tiny blurry screenshot, but I figured out that the problem is they can't connect to the machine where the software is installed. A common issue for users, but very much not my problem. For context, my company sells software, but it's installed on the client's hardware, and it's the client's responsibility to ensure that the machine with the software is running. It's accessible from their private network, etc. So what I should have done is tell them there is nothing I can do, and tell them to contact their own IT support. However, and this is entirely my fault, I tried to be helpful. This is a new client, and he seemed like a decent person if not very tech savvy, and this kind of issue usually has an easy fix. So I replied, "Hello client, the software is working fine, the issue is you're not reaching the machine, so there is something configured incorrectly on your end. Can you please check that in the settings the IP address is this? Can you check that the port is 34567? Can you check that this option is turned on? Please do this and let me know if it solves your issue." I couldn't do these things myself because I don't have access to this client's PC. However, it was literally 3 things I told him to do, and I sent him screenshots and a step-by-step guide on how to open the settings menu. 5 minutes later, he replies he's done that, it didn't work, and to fix it ASAP. Now, users always lie, and I get the feeling that he didn't follow my instructions at all. His reply was too quick. Also, 99.9% of connection problems are caused by the IP or port being wrong, and the other 0.1% are the weird esoteric bugs where you need to call in senior developers. So I asked the client to please send me a screenshot of the settings panel to double check, as I'm pretty sure he never opened it to begin with. The next email I get from the client is extremely angry. He says the settings are fine, no screenshots. That this is a huge issue because he's not able to work. And if I don't know what to do, he wants the issue escalated immediately to someone more skilled. He's also CCing my boss and my boss's boss, which pisses me off. Not because I'm in any trouble, my boss is great, but I'm a senior team member and somehow my male coworkers never get people questioning whether they know what they're doing. So I do as he requested, and I escalate the matter to the highest authority, which is to say, the head of client's IT. Said person is a lazy incompetent who most likely configured something wrong and now might take a week to get around to fix it. I make sure to CC client's boss as well, I flag it as urgent, etc, etc. I also tell IT guy that the client already checked the settings, and so he should run this and that time-consuming diagnostic test. With some luck, he will do that once he gets around to reading my email sometime next week. Of course, I didn't bother sending the email to the general IT team address, so there's no chance that some lowly help desk person will fix the issue in a timely manner. It's been 24 hours so far for something that could have been fixed in 10 minutes. OP added a bit of an update edit at the end. It says, edit by request. I expected nothing else would happen and IT guy would get around to fixing the issue next week. But I was wrong. IT guy just sent an email, I will be on holiday next week. Literally just that. He didn't even say when he would get around to looking at user's problem. User said it's only Wednesday and begged IT guy to stop by his desk today for just 30 minutes. IT guy hasn't answered. I'm assuming he did nothing. User's email's increasingly upset. We'll update if there's more later. If you're honestly asking somebody to do something for you and they're treating you with respect, then you should treat them with respect as well. I mean, you want them to do something for you. OP was going out of their scope of support as well, and doing things that they probably shouldn't have done, so this person should have been extra appreciative of what OP was doing. But unfortunately that doesn't happen sometimes because there's buttholes like this person out there. Check out all 4 OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching, I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.